I heard James talking about it just then, about the sectional timings at Newmarket. We're going to take a look back at the 2,000 guineas now from the start, and we'll be pausing at regular intervals just to allow James to add his comments. So we'll take it from the start. This was the 2,000 guineas.
Right. This is a great moment that we have these times on. For a very coarse way of looking at it, just look at the speed, which is next to the 1 mile on the race header at the top there. That gives you an idea. Well, first of all, you shouldn't be long in learning that in most races at up to a mile, horses hit their peak velocity very early in the race. And that's one of the reasons why, because then the speed deteriorates from there on. The idea that horses accelerate to win races is in many cases erroneous. Some horses do, who have lots of ability, who are very well handicapped for the grade, who are just classy. But there you can see 37 miles an hour. They didn't get much faster than that throughout, and that was only after about, what, a furlong? So that's the first point of call, the first point of reference. Okay. And just as a corollary of that, one of the reasons I bang on about the dangers of late headway horses, people promoting horses for running on late, is that they're gaining ground on their rivals in the cheapest part of the race energetically to do so. When at this point, when horses are in full flow and running near their peak speed, that's why if you miss a break, we don't look at the start of a race enough in Britain. If you miss the break and are rushed up, we saw William Buick do it in the first race at Kempton.
Imagine again.
It's an absolutely certain way to get a horse beaten. Jockeys obviously have their instructions. They're told to race prominently, or they're told to be in a certain spot in the field. But that's something you should be very, very careful about. And the last point is, watch Frankie Dettori riding hold-up horses, such as the Colour Vision, who he won the Cigaro on at Kempton. When he holds a horse up, he'll make a point of leaving the stalls very steadily so that he gets the full energy benefit of running the first 2 furlongs slower than everything else. And on Colour Vision, if you go back and watch that race online, you'll see he was 3 or 4 lengths behind the second last horse early on. And that's why Colour Vision was able to accelerate so readily through the field, because he was doing so against tired horses up front. Themar was ridden too aggressively in that race and set the race up for Colour Vision.
Right, 15.24 for the first furlong. We can now roll it on again.
Right,
and
so
take them from 7 to 6.
I should have pointed out, actually, David, that of course the first furlong in Britain, because they've set the sectionals up as they have, includes a standing start. Now you've got to take it's up to you, but 2.5 seconds is a decent benchmark to take off the first furlong to allow for the standing start. So if you did that, you get 12.7, and that's what you'd expect. The pace gradually accelerating from 12.7 to 12.1, and then in that second column, that's Racing UK's cumulative standard time. So that's the running time, if you want. So they took the first quarter in 27.36, which is the equivalent of the American 25, taking that 2.5 seconds off. So then we can see that the pace, allowing for the undulations of the course, which are quite minor at this point, is about constant now. That the horses have hit their cruising speed and are running at a pace their jockeys are happy with. Now, the next level to analyse is how fast is that compared to expectations? And one of the ways to do that is to model the course and distance using past Guineas or past races over a mile which have yielded fast time. Now, I won't bore you with how you make the calculations, because this, as I say, is the second level. But the pace in the Guineas was slower than these horses should have been capable of by a little bit. It's not enough to call it a slowly run race, but it'd be fair to call it slightly steady or slightly slower than optimal.
Well, we'll roll it on again. So we've been through the first 3 furlongs.
These 3 groups, Angus touched on that early on. It really is ridiculous. They've got to make that course narrower. It's a real integrity issue for these results, which are massively important for the future of the breed. Luckily, the best horse won here. So now 12.39. Again, you can't always take it that the pace is decelerating. You can see the pattern of those last 3 furlongs: 12.12, 12.25, 12.39. What you might be looking at there, something we highlighted on Champions Day, is just really the physical layout of the track. You might get humps and hollows as you go as Newmarket. Probably that bit. The ground might have been a little bit softer there as well. It doesn't matter. What we're trying to do is establish each expectation for each part of the course, and then compare it from race to race through the day to find out how conditions were. So let's run it on a bit from there before we draw any conclusions which were wrong. Now, I said it was steady early on. So at some stage, we're expecting the jockeys to kick for home. And what happens in races of this pattern a lot is what we would classify as the slow, fast, slow type of gallop. The riders feel that their horses are running strongly underneath of them, and they kick for home. Now, because jockeys confuse pace with position, that is, they may be told to sit third, to hold a horse up. No one says to them, go 25 for the first quarter, make sure you don't go the half in more than 50. So often, when they're travelling quite strongly off a steady pace, jockeys will accelerate typically too far from home. Mm-hmm. Remember the Dewhurst won by Milk It Mick is one of the most dramatic examples of a slowly run race early suiting hold-up horses, because they kick for home 3.5 furlongs out, and horses cannot sustain top pace for more than 2.5 furlongs. And that just set it up for Milk It Mick.
Yeah, beat Three Valleys.
Yes,
this is an awful long time ago now.
It does, yes.
Let's just the business end of the race now, James. Come into the final two.
So you can see the jockeys starting to make an effort visually across the course. Camelot set plenty to do by Joseph O'Brien. Of course, a winning ride is a good ride.
Yeah.
But this was not an optimal ride. He was too far back, not dramatically so, but a little too far back to actually for Camelot to run an efficient race. But of course, young Joseph had other considerations on his mind. The horse was reappearing. He was a horse that was likely to be a strong finisher. And so it's likely he didn't want to actually expose the horse to a strong gallop in the middle part of the race for fear that his lack of conditioning would take its toll. But as you stop the race there's that 12.18.
Yep.
So the fastest furlong beget by the pace early on being steady. The jockeys have have accelerated, but it's in this case, it's just a little bit too far out.
Well, we'll roll it on again for the final couple of furlongs.
And you can see Camelot now starting his run with French 15. Now, turf races in Britain generally, even ones on a stiff track, are generally not run at an even pace. They generally either of a slow, slow, fast type or of a slow, fast, slow type. And in this race, we can see Camelot and French 15 about to assert themselves off a steady pace, but already now that 12.18 is starting to take its toll. And over the far side there, the French, the third, is it Hermival, the horse that was third in the Jebel, hits the front there, but he can't pull that far away from Coup de Ville and his disappointing compatriot Abtal there. So action more on this side of the course. Now, if you wanted to pick a horse out that had run his race the most efficiently of any in the race, it would be Trumpet Major.
Right.
No surprise there is the mount of Richard Hughes, who's a supreme judge of pace and an exquisite rider. So the two horses, the first and second, about to assert themselves. Now, here's the crucial point for handicapping. We traditionally analyse races by the positions of the horses at the finish, but that's a function of pace. Now, look at the distance marker. Where are we? A furlong and a half out. These two horses just don't have enough time to exert their full...
Less than a furlong out now.
Oh, it is, yeah, sorry, yeah. The first and second don't have enough time to exert their full superiority. Trumpet Major had every opportunity to run his race and did so. But these two who pull away from this point, if the race had been stronger run early on, both French 15 and Camelot would have pulled further away. And because Camelot was further back than French 15, and in that last 1.5 furlongs, he ran a little bit faster than French 15. What we can do is, in effect, stretch the finishing positions by using the sectional times. And we can infer, quite objectively, that Camelot should have won this race by a bit further. Mm-hmm. Now, not dramatically further, I'm not talking about a long, but maybe he could have won by another half length. And so we have objective data to actually credit Camelot with having won the race by something other than that, the distance of the finishing positions. And I remember back to the international classification with Rock of Gibraltar, where they made Rock of Gibraltar champion 3-year-old by just, seemed to me, subjectively adding a bit on to his figures, because everybody knew he was the dominant horse, but because he won his races by a small margin, we couldn't properly evaluate him. With sectional times, one of their myriad uses is we can evaluate the superiority of horses mathematically. We don't have to guess. And in this case, we know French 15 was a little bit better than the distance that he pulled away from the field, so give him 1.5 lengths to 2 lengths. And we need to stretch the result even more and give Camelot maybe 2.5 to 3 lengths over the rest of the field. And there we have objective data that we can use to actually learn more about the run of a race and the horses that competed within it.